the button. So we're live. We're live. So everyone, thank you for joining us. I know you're slowly start pouring in. There's some big news out of Ghana. So we just thought we'd hop on real quick and discuss the new virtual asset policy framework dropped by the Bank of Ghana. So we have Zekarias, Amsalu, and Foster. And we're going to be having just an open discussion, just some dialogue and some commentary on it. Yeah. So, we were just in Ghana, guys, right? We just literally hopped off the plane. You guys are leading many of these conversations between regulators and innovators. And so, while you were there, what was the sense on the ground? Did you have the inside scoop? What can you tell us?
Thank you very much, Mickey. I can start with that. So, yes, we had our largest summit yet in Accra with over 1,000 in person and many more thousands virtually. And we had actually the Bank of Ghana, our strategic partner, and also co-convener. So this is actually the first time when we have the official co-convening and the strategic partnership with the central bank in the last 7 years. So that's a huge addition. So before maybe delve into the actual summit and what has come out from Accra, it's good to also mention the innovative leadership of the Bank of Ghana over the years. First is Bank of Ghana, along with the Central Bank of Rwanda, is actually the first to issue fintech license passporting, as we've discussed at our summit. So that is one huge leadership the Bank of Ghana had in the continent. And also they are a leader when it comes to the digital CBDC. They also have received a global award for their ECD design, a global, not just continental, a global award. So they have already been a leader on so many fronts. And now we're adding the digital virtual assets license clarity that we're going to discuss with that. So a huge leadership from the Bank of Ghana. Maybe Foster can touch on what has come out of Accra when it comes to Bank of Ghana, and then I'll touch on the fireside chat we had with Kwame and also the presentation that Bank of Ghana has done in Accra. Over to you, Foster.
All right, thanks. I think two very big news today. Before anything else, before all the successes we've seen this year from a macroeconomic or monetary policy standpoint, is Ghana has just been announced as the largest gold reserve country with a gold reserve in Africa and the sixth in the world, putting us at about 38 metric tons of gold in reserve. We've seen how gold has been performing across the continent, across the globe in the recent months. Prices are hiking, demand is increasing, just as we've seen for other critical minerals. The second very successful thing has been reduction in inflation, has been very significant, and this has happened just over a period of 10 months. And I think that's very, very prudent of the central bank with support from all its other agencies to have been able to achieve this. Beyond that, known for the banking sector cleanup, big decisions. It was a very, very interesting time for Ghana and a shake in the financial services sector to have undergone that clean. I always say short-term pain, long-term gain. And the central bank has been a clear demonstration of making some of these capital decisions, which end up protecting us in the long term from a financial stability standpoint. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Foster. And just going back to our partnership with the Bank of Ghana for our summit in Accra, we had the pleasure of 3 dedicated events and sessions by the Bank of Ghana. The governor of the Bank of Ghana had delivered a keynote speech, which Kwame delivered on his behalf. So that was a high-level overview of where the central bank is headed when it comes to fintech and also in financial services. So that was great. We also had a fireside chat with Bank of Ghana when it comes to fintech license passporting, what it means for the fintech ecosystem. We're so happy to have Kwame leading that fireside chat. And in relation to the news, we just heard about the virtual or digital assets. Actually, the Bank of Ghana had a presentation on October 9 in Accra, entitled "Overview of the Bank of Ghana Virtual Asset Service Providers Roadmap," and it was presented by Kwado, who is the Fintech and Digital Innovation Lead at the Bank of Ghana. So what has come out on the news is actually what has been presented to us on October 9. So we're so happy that actually our in-person and virtual attendees heard and listened to the Bank of Ghana's vision when it comes to the virtual digital asset firsthand. So it was what we expected, what was presented at the summit. And what is unique, and especially when you look into the news, and it was also was presented at our summit in Accra, the roadmap is called risk-based, principle-driven framework. That's very interesting. Risk-based, principle-driven. So as a central bank, you have the fiduciary duty to protect your consumers, your citizens. So it has to be risk-based. And also you want to foster innovation. So it has to be principle-driven as a central bank with oversight to financial innovation. So it's as a framework that touches both aspects. And what does it mean for the fintech and crypto ecosystem? Foster, just step in and then chip in whenever you have something to say.
No, I think the Bank of Ghana has done something extremely important. Over the last few years, we've seen hesitation from virtual asset service providers when it comes to investing in Ghana. And the central bank had not stated clearly its position. Knowing the central bank and how it prudently incubates ideas, engage stakeholders to make sure that it fully understands the asset class or the sector, the emerging sector, through the Fintech and Innovation Department, clearly was a typical example of how they operate. Right. Today, we've seen that they've taken a strong position. The central bank, the SEC, the FIC have now said, "Hey, this space can no longer stay outside regulations anymore." Today in Ghana, VASP users or consumers are over 1 million across the various platforms that operate in the country. And we have over 100 virtual assets and service providers that currently operate in the country. That is something you cannot ignore. And it is gradually shifting to become part of the real financial services economy or ecosystem at large. And it poses a real AML CFT risk to the financial services sector if the central bank did not make a move to guide it. Because if it wasn't relevant, you won't have 100 million users and you won't have 100 plus vast virtual asset service providers investing in building the necessary rails and infrastructural services for this to operate. So I think that is a very big signal. My biggest statement I can say here is they are not regulating. They're regulating activity and not necessarily hype. Seeing that the hype started way longer, they did not jump on the wagon to say, "Hey, this hype is too big and we need to participate in it." They rather went into an incubation approach to fully understand what the activities are, like you mentioned, principles and risk, and be able to establish fully what the activities, the activities within the ecosystems are, and what risk it poses for the financial services sector. And you can classify them into custody, into payment, into tokenization, into trade, remittance, brokerage. And these are some big use cases that have emerged out of the virtual asset service providers who currently operate within the country. And for me, being able to establish a guideline to license, register, and regulate these innovators or innovative institutions is very critical. You cannot operate in a sector, or you cannot maximize the potential of virtual assets if you are formally or legally not recognized by the regulator. That means, by ripple effect, assets that any user or consumer owns within the sector cannot be used as collateral, cannot be used for the purposes of any form of custody, and the ripple effect of it thereafter. And that exposes the consumer at the last mile. If there's ever any shutdown of any of these systems, the central bank can say, "Hey, you went at your own risk, you've lost your money at your own risk." And today, this is a bold step to give consumers more confidence about solutions that are emerging that have shown affordability, reliability, especially when it comes to remittance, which tends to be one of the biggest use of virtual assets within the region. And by extension, it's exposes certain things, right? But the guideline, I think I'll let you take over here, Zach, and maybe talk a little bit more around the guidelines.
Just to chime in from a, global scale, crypto companies trying to get into Ghana, or even the existing ecosystem of crypto and fintech companies, how does this impact them from a use case perspective? Would there be more verticals opened up? You mentioned tokenization, you mentioned a lot of things, and what message would you give for companies, one, coming into Ghana, and for the local startups now? Is this the time for them to just start running with all the different use cases, or what is the message to them?
I can step in and then answer it, and Sergey can also chip in. So I think the message both for existing and also potentially, start crypto and blockchain companies, virtual asset providers planning to move to Ghana, the message is clear. Innovators innovate, regulators regulate, right? But regulators are expected beyond regulation, provide clarity, predictability, and stability. So this framework is providing that clarity, predictability, and stability. So you have a policy that you can account for, you can refer to, and you can comply. So any crypto company, any blockchain company now not only have a policy and framework, but you have an office to go to. So what the framework did, it established the Virtual Assets Regulatory Office. So you have an office address, Bank of Ghana. You have a department, the Virtual Asset Regulatory Office, and that is where you go. You have the framework. So that is one message. There is a clear accountability and licensing framework. The second is consumer protection is a big thing. And that risk-based, but principle-based approach is also clear with the second requirement this framework has put. That is the establishment of the National Virtual Asset Literacy Initiative. So consumer protection, financial literacy, given the risk and also the fraud involved in the crypto in the past, now consumer protection and financial literacy is not necessarily the responsibility of the regulator, but is a shared aim and goal of both the regulator and innovator. So for cryptocurrency companies, what that means is that can you share that literacy with a regulator? We had Binance as our keynote speaker. We have other virtual asset providers. They have tons and tons of academy resources. Yeah. Now, can you make that available to the consumers? Can you educate so that you have that confidence built and that rapport is developed and intensified between the regulator, the crypto company, and the consumers? And you can even take it even further. You have these tested and tried academics and initiative and learnings that you have from other markets. Can you localize it? Can you provide some of those lessons and literacy in local language? That's also something that those crypto companies can look into. Educate, work with the regulators, secure a license, and the third, and I think the bigger picture here is that Bank of Ghana has already started their fintech license passporting arrangement with Rwanda. Yeah. So any virtual asset provider that want to actually accelerate and solidify their regulated and compliant virtual asset service provider, work in the ground with Bank of Ghana, get it right, and passport it to Rwanda and also to other markets. So basically, do your job right start from literacy, financial education, compliance, and automatically that takes you to Rwanda. And then also as Bank of Ghana and other regulators also expand that passporting arrangement, you can expand your services to Africa.
Nice. So great point and great segue into our last discussion point. And maybe Foster, you you can take it because Zekarias already touched on it. But what predictions do you have as to other markets, actually taking a stance on crypto, maybe passing frameworks? What do you see kind of coming down the pipeline, as Zach pointed out with Rwanda?
I think if you go beyond Ghana at this point and you look at the market as a whole from a scanning perspective, there are very, very few countries that you can name that have some form of guidelines governing the virtual asset service providers virtual service providers or operators, as you put it. Ghana has definitely moved out of the silence or ban polar decisions that were being made by central banks to now have taken a middle stance and saying, hey, we are not banning this, but we are going to create a tight risk-based supervision. And that guideline, the guideline that has just been released, is a big signal to that. And for me, this serves as a template for other African countries to start to emulate, not just copy from the European Union or copy and paste from MICA. I think one of the other things that it signals strongly is present an opportunity, because if you look at the guidelines, it's aligned with the FATF, it's aligned with IMF, it's aligned with FSB, it's aligned with IOSCO. It's also aligned with BIS when it comes to positioning the framework or the guidelines for the virtual assets bill. So it meets a lot of international standard requirements. And for me, this is an opportunity for other African countries, especially within the West African corridor, who share a lot in common when it comes to regulatory framework from a central bank standpoint or from a financial technology standpoint. It's an easy plug and play. The biggest signal for me is Ghana becoming a regulatory coordination node for the sub-region. We've seen Ghana take precedence with a central bank digital currency platform. We've seen Ghana taking precedence with the passport licensing with Rwanda. We've seen Ghana taking precedence with so many guidelines when it comes to the Payment Services Act, the passport bill, right? Yeah, the passport act. So there's a lot when it comes to Ghana taking precedence of. And I see this as one of these monumental periods where we have launched a guideline that is not just going to be a talk show, but an opportunity for every other African country that has been figuring out where they stand to take advantage of the learning, share, and then improve upon it. And I think central banks in Africa have been a good model when it comes to collaboration between countries or collaboration between countries to improve policies. Because financial services as an industry cannot exist in isolation. Every single day, you have to be communicating using a certain protocol from one country to the other. And once guidelines are not uniform within the continent, it poses the fragmentation that fintechs have been trying to solve for. And just as we always say, innovation cannot precede policy, but can move hand in hand. This is one typical example of innovation preceding policy and not guiding policy to figure out how to operate or what framework within which you can operate without stifling innovation. So these will be my big predictions. Most importantly, Ghana taking the mantle to become a regulatory coordination node for the virtual assets and service providers bills or acts that are frameworks that will start to emerge in the other countries.
Nice. Zach, any closing points on that?
Yes, I want to borrow the word Kwame from the Bank of Ghana at the time. I mentioned during our fireside chats when I asked him what is his advice to the central banks. His advice was to lean in. And the Bank of Ghana did lean in and actually issued this virtual asset framework. So it's now down to the innovators to collaborate and work with central banks. And as we are heading to Rwanda for next year's summit, I really can't wait to pick up this piece where virtual asset providers have actually tested the ground, secured their licensed operation in Ghana, and potentially even passport their license to Rwanda. And can't wait to see that use case in next year.
Nice. So That was great. From time to time, we will do this whenever something, urgent or breaking drops, the team will hop on. So let us know what you guys think. If you thought this was useful, practical, share it. Let us know. We'll keep doing this. Thank you for those who joined. Thank you for those watching. And we'll touch base until next time.
All right.
Thank you very
Cheers.
much. Okay, bye.